What's up, gamers? Aaron Shack here with another episode of the Shackcast. We have a special guest here, Andrew Alliance, to talk with us about content creation, podcasting, live streaming, and everything that comes with it. Viewers and fellow content creators recently have been asking, well, how do you get to where you are? How do you do what you do? How do I grow more on my channel? How do I do this? How do I do that? You know, there's a lot that goes into all this, and we always want to give back and sort of educate where we can. So I would like to introduce Andrew Alliance and give him a chance to tell you guys all about what he does.
Hey, what's up, man? What's going on?
Dude, just living the life here.
No, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for the invite. So by way of a quick intro, my name is Andrew Alliance. I've been podcasting since 2009, over 620 plus shows at this point published. We crossed the million view mark on YouTube not too long ago, and yeah, just still learning, man. I'm just obsessed with human behavior, sociology, psychology stuff, and current affiliations include Logitech, Astro, and Blue Microphones, and I'm just happy to be here, man. Just hang out with you, and we can talk about you know the grind of podcasts and content and stuff, man. So thank you again.
Well, thank you for always having me on your various podcasts and different things that you're doing. Another thing that we might note is your clubhouse. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Clubhouse has been really good. So I've been hanging on Clubhouse since last year, May 2021, and of course that was at the heart of the pandemic for the most part. So it was a great place to start, learning about the platform, social audio, and just having great conversations. And one of the things that I've been doing there regularly is a room called either "So You Want to Be a Podcaster," or I'll call it, podcast mindset tools and tips. And that room has we've ran that room for about at least 11 weeks. So we've done it 11 weeks straight. I think we just did the 12, so we might do one more, which would be 13. So that has become its own podcast in and of itself, because you're having people come into the room and ask you a whole bunch of questions about getting started podcasting and tips and stuff. And because I'm currently writing a book about it, I wanted to start ironing out those questions, and pretty much put myself in a very interesting situation where um, this individual feels like they know all the stuff about podcasting, so come ask them questions, and I'm looking for one to stump me, and so far it's been pretty good. So it's giving me material.
That's such an awesome thing to try to challenge yourself in that way. That's how you prove whether you are who you say you are, and
Yep.
you know, teach. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about getting started as a content creator, and this is going to be more of a conversation than like an interview and like back and forth
Yeah.
questions and stuff.
Sure, man.
Pretty loose. But yeah, getting started. If you were like to lose, and I know I'm already doing a question here, but if you were to just lose your whole setup and you had to start over tomorrow, like what would you do to get started?
Okay, great question. So I think podcasting under $100 is key for many individuals, right? So I was watching a YouTube video earlier today. Kate Erickson, she's part of Entrepreneur on Fire with John Lee Dumas, and their partners, and they have like a whole podcasting business and stuff like that. She's still using like a mic that's like under $100, and they have a seven-figure business, right? So I think that getting started with sounding good shouldn't be extremely expensive. And I'll send you some links as well. So I do have a link where it's titled "Podcast for Under $100," and the mic that I'm recommending these days. I know we talked about mics in the past, but this one
Yeah.
actually comes with a sturdy weighted base. It's called the Maono USB XLR Podcast Dynamic Microphone, right? So it has the pop filter, and it's a great looking mic. It sounds good in terms of not being dark, but very like fresh. It's not too dark of a sounding mic. So The clarity on it is really fantastic. And that mic right now is going on Amazon for about like $50 and it retails at 80 something dollars. So I think that if I were to lose everything that I have now, all the blue microphones and all those things, I'd probably recommend that microphone setup with like a Philips over ear wired stereo headset to start. And that puts you at $70, $80, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I would start. And the reason I would start there is because a lot of folks feel that having the most expensive microphone is going to yield you, great things. It may, in terms of helping you, block out certain sounds, dynamic versus condenser and stuff like that. But for example, if we talk about like the Shure SM7B that Michael Jackson used for Thriller, you're not going to sound like Michael Jackson or perform like him, right? Because there's a lot of work that goes into, getting to a place for you to create amazing content on a microphone. You need your reps, right? So, as I stated, I have over 600 reps of editing time and publishing time and a podcasting game. And, some of my colleagues have way longer reps because they start earlier than I did. But you have to go through the reps. So if I were to start, I would say, check out the Maono Caster. Well, Maono Caster is the board, but check out the Maono USB XLR podcast microphone, and I can send you some links over your way for stuff like that under $100.
Absolutely. That's such a valuable resource because I think a lot of creators are starting from that point where they're like, how do I do this without spending thousands of dollars on a
Yeah, for
setup here?
sure.
It's not approachable, right? It's why building a PC can be like such a laborious thing is that people may assume that, oh, automatically that's 2 or 3 grand out of my pocket. And it's like, no, you can kind of start and just gradually buy parts and upgrade your setup as necessary. And I think having a good start like this is a good place to start. And then, if you ever feel like upgrading in the future, but as you've said, it's like that one person just didn't really ever feel the need to upgrade, which is kind of dope. I mean,
Yeah, and
I'm rocking
they
this.
have a 7-figure business,
That's
bro.
insane.
Okay,
I would
and
just
they're
go ahead and buy
using
the Shure mic just to have it, just to be like, we made it,
yeah.
guys. It's a milestone.
Exactly. Once you get to that point, you can buy whatever you want. But if you're looking for just like, breaking in at a
Mhm.
decent price, there's so many different mics out there, especially if you have a PC already and you want to be able to connect it to your PC and then later on using the XLR option on that particular microphone. There's a lot of options out there for that, but you don't have to break the bank, you know. You can sound good without that.
That is such a great option because, yeah, a lot of us did not start out with mixers or interfaces and stuff like that. So having that USB direct in option is pretty dope.
Yeah, I still don't have a board. I still don't have a mixing board.
Yeah, so tell just, without like steering off course into like an audio thing for the next hour.
No, we can. No, we
We
can. We
totally
can talk
could.
about it a little bit.
But yeah, talk about kind of the virtual, because you've gone through a lot of stuff in terms of like virtual interfaces like um Banana.
Yeah, we've done the voice meter banana situation, which I loved,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I started seeing OBS, the software maturing, which most of us use on a regular basis, it is a extremely underrated and powerful platform, right? So when you look at a conversation like this, I tend to use OBS to record like my Twitter Spaces, and right now I'm using it to uh, just mix things on the actual OBS, monitor things, all the compressors and EQ and all that stuff that we do. Most of that stuff I do in OBS, right? And if I'm on Clubhouse, I'll use Club Deck, which is the Windows or Mac app. And then that particular app gives you the ability to play music while you're, speaking over the sounds as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that option. And then you have SteelSeries Sonar, which is, a free software, really, really good. But really, at the end of the day, it's a it's a free software to promote their headsets, right? Because there's certain AI and noise capabilities that you cannot do with the software unless you get the SteelSeries headsets, which I don't remember the names right now. But that software is really powerful. Now, the reason I'm not using that software right now is it was a direct conflict for whatever reason with Logitech's G Hub, right? So I had to uninstall that software. Although I do believe
Mm,
the SteelSeries Sonar is an amazing, microphone tool and making you sound absolutely amazing, right?
yeah.
But my conflict was the reason I uninstalled it. But it is a great capture tool, especially if you're, playing whatever game that you're playing to capture game stuff. So I think it's an incredible tool for that. And most of my Call of Duty beta clips, which Call of Duty at this point comes out tomorrow, most of my beta clips was from that particular pieces of software. So yeah, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about, man. We can get it all in here.
Yeah.
And I do have like consulting options as well that I'm opening up this fall. Well, what, not fall, fall winter? Yeah, fall winter. For anyone who wants specific guidance on their stuff.
Oh boy, that even just the fact that you're doing that kind of harkens back to some of the good old days where it seemed like back and forth. Either you or I would find someone and be like, "Hey, I got this streamer. It's got like an audio problem. Like, can we can we knock heads here and just sort of go back and forth about like, oh, what could it be? No, we tried that. No, it didn't work. And I went into the settings here." And we used to kind of do that, and it was really rewarding, but it was also very time consuming. But we helped a lot of people, and a lot of people. I remember helping a lot of people just get their initial setups going when I was running a community for streamers. It was like, just being there to sort of provide various resources because not everybody knows all the tools and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. It's really cool to see you giving back in that way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You have to. I do it pretty regularly on Clubhouse, and I think that individuals who are serious about focusing their content or getting like a packaged conversation for them, that's definitely an investment that individuals should consider. So with that particular thing, not to go too much into it, is
Mm-hmm.
I help folks package and create a lean framework for how they're going to create their content online, whether that's audio or video. Just give them that time. Hey, you have me for an hour, ask me all the questions you need to ask me that pertains to you, and then we'll frame it in such a way where it's actionable, right? I think those things are important.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of gotten a little bit into gear. Let's talk a little bit more about like gear and apps that we like to use in content creation. The big one being OBS, right?
Yeah, the big one is definitely OBS, and I think that just by way of like mindset, when you're thinking about tools, you can do amazing things with the tools that are free. Free doesn't mean that it's cheap per
Mm-hmm.
se, right? Free means that it doesn't give you all the presets that a paid product would, like Adobe Audition. So Adobe Audition is fantastic, but you're looking at $20 a month. And if you're just starting out and you don't have that, budget for that, then you have to consider learning Audacity. And once you learn Audacity in such a way that you're proficient at Audacity, then using Adobe Audition will be like a joy for you because you've built the foundation of using a free tool like Audacity, which I believe is available for Mac and PC. So you have tools like Audacity, GarageBand would be for the Apple folks. You have DaVinci Resolve, which is fantastic. Yeah, so those are some of the free ones. BlueStacks 5 is good if you're trying to emulate your Twitter or other things on your PC,
Mm-hmm.
because Twitter doesn't give you the option right now to um, fully use their tool set for Twitter Spaces via the browser. So you can use something like BlueStacks 5, and that gives you the emulation like you'd be using your phone. So I use Twitter and Twitter Spaces on the PC, and that's how I record the conversations on the PC.
See, that's another important thing, not to deviate too much, but the important thing is that you are not out there wasting your time. You're not doing content that's going to vanish and disappear. You notice there's a trend here that Andrew is making sure that every conversation he's having out there is being recorded and repurposed into content. It's not just fading into the ether once the conversation's over. If you weren't there, that's too bad, right?
Yeah, it's extremely important. So Twitter Spaces, for those who are listening, like Twitter Spaces gives you 30 days, and then it purges the conversation. Now, some of the recent news that they announced is that they're considering becoming a podcast app, right? So there's a big difference between listening to stuff on a audio demand app like your Clubhouse, that's not a podcast, versus listening to audio stuff on demand that's in a podcast feed, which is technically considered a real podcast, right? By way of definition.
Right.
So what you have to do, or what I wanted to do with this gig that I have on Twitter Spaces, which is a gig that I got because of my catalog for the show radio. That particular thing was, hey, can I record the conversations? So I don't have to, double back and ask you to send it to me. So that was the agreement on the contract. And then from there, I'm free to record any conversations that I do under G Media. Shout outs to them, and take that conversation and repurpose it on my own feed. So, like for some of the things I was sharing with you earlier, Rick Party, Hall of Famer, 30 plus years in the radio broadcasting business. We recently had a conversation with him on Twitter Spaces. That, for anyone who's going to be doing audio or doing podcast anything, would be a great conversation to listen to inspire them, right? Because I was inspired just listening, and I was the one, like moderating the conversation. And things like that, conversations like that, whether you decide to speak to a Mr. Beast or anybody that is like incredible, and you respect in your field, you don't want that conversation to disappear in 30 days, right? So you
No.
have to find ways to, preserve that. So what I did was I archived it on my feed to Scripto Life, which is on Spotify. And now that conversation with Rick Party is going to be preserved, SEO'd, and searchable for anyone who happens to either stumble on that conversation or what have you, and be inspired,
That's incredible. Well, let's see. We've talked a little bit about gear, some of the apps that we use, and any other apps that we're missing out on here. Discord.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
there's some
Discord
paid
seems
ones.
obvious. We're like we're right here speaking through
Yeah.
Discord.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Discord is incredible. And I think that, I mean, as you saw,
Mm-hmm.
they recently added the forums. They're trying to find all the different ways that you can collaborate audio and video within Discord. It's an amazing platform. I think where Discord gets a bad rap, not because of Discord, but I think that the people using it should do due diligence on how to properly secure the servers, because blaming Discord for a lack of security at this point is
Mm.
unfair, in my opinion, right? Because they have enough tools, and there's enough bots that you can use within the Discord servers to make sure that you have full control of whatever that means, right? Of what's happening in your own server.
Yeah.
And Discord has even added more moderation tools recently, integrated into their platform, where it's not as tough to be one admin and moderate your own server, right? So audio quality is fantastic on Discord. You have the forum stuff, you have, watching things together. I mean, it's incredible what you can do with the platform. You can access it on your phone, on your PC, and I think that a tool like that for having conversations is extremely powerful. Now, the branding of it over the last couple of years has changed, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
pre-pandemic, it was the gamers thing, right? Then during pandemic, So pre-pandemic, it was a Skype killer, Skype competitor, right?
Yeah,
So during the pandemic, it became a platform that started competing with Zoom in terms of, platform templates and security, right? So they beefed up their stuff, started rebranding for the anyone can use it, right? And then now it's at a place now where it's a household name and it's integrated in the console stuff that we do, PlayStation stuff, Xbox stuff. We're using it right now, and it's individuals are using it to build communities on Clubhouse and other social platforms. Major developers are using it as their main community tool, and we're doing the same as well. So it it's no longer just a gamer's thing, right?
very
It
true.
is being globally recognized as something that we can use to build amazing communities. And there are other tools, there are your Slacks and stuff like that, but Discord has stepped it up tremendously over the pandemic to be a tool that is becoming a household name.
Yeah, and I think in terms of collaborations, it's been the most incredible tool. I mean, the ability to stream gameplay and video and stuff like that through the app
Mhm.
has given me creative control to either show a friend's gameplay on stream while I'm showing my gameplay, or show images of multiple of us if we're having a video or a podcast or a conversation together, whatever it may be. All those tools are available, and just the quality, especially with the audio has always been like unsurpassed. I mean,
Mhm.
it's like you're really here in the room with me speaking. Like, that's how real it is for me. I
It's
could
really
tell
good.
the difference between this and like Xbox 360 party chat, where it
Right.
was like you're getting a picture of someone's voice, but it's not quite there.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really good for sure.
yeah, Discord's incredible. Other apps that we have in mind?
Mm, so you have OBS, which we touched on. RIA plugs for OBS is really good, where you're adding the EQ compressor and things like that for OBS. That's definitely a good one. DaVinci Resolve, I mentioned it earlier, but one of the things to consider with DaVinci Resolve, as much as it is a video editing tool, there's a lot of audio tools in there, and they have a free version and a paid version. It's not a subscription model like Adobe.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely check out DaVinci Resolve for sure. Levelator, it's been discontinued for a long time, but by way of a tool that's still available, that's still that you can still use in your framework and workflow. Levelator is really good, and then there's some other paid ones like Reaper, which is fantastic. Hindenburg, which is fantastic. So my flow is typically I'll record the conversation via OBS, and then I'll do an Adobe Audition edit, and then from there I'll finalize with Hindenburg, and then that's when it becomes the MP3. And if we want to get super technical, I use 96 kilobytes per second or 64. Anything above that is overkill because you have to be mindful of other individuals in other countries that do not have like broadband. They have to meter their internet, so you have to be mindful of that as well.
Absolutely. So getting into our next thing, I want to talk a little bit about research because I think it's something that
Mhm.
probably a lot of people might not consider when they're getting into podcasting, live streaming, content creation, whatever it may be, is that, they really just maybe look at what someone else does and they kind of mimic it. They see their favorite
Right.
streamer, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's the mic I should get, that's the camera I should get. I should orient my overlays just like that person. I should, have my podcast laid out in the exact same format." Um,
Right.
One of the things we did, especially when I was making the transition, I did 7 years on Twitch and then we moved over to YouTube. This is year 2 of YouTube here. But when I
Mhm.
moved to YouTube, you recommended a bunch of books and stuff, and you had mentioned like, "Oh yeah, I'm reading this. I'm learning how to do this." And I thought I hadn't even really considered reading books about YouTube. I read books when I'm learning all sorts of other tools, but I hadn't considered it yet. And so one of the big ones that hit for me was the YouTube formula. Well, I also did
Absolutely.
read YouTube Secrets, but YouTube Formula was written by the guy who he hangs out with Mr. Beast quite a bit, and he tells a bunch of stories about how him and other creators, just sort of have this mastermind group of, they just kind of go back and forth about ideas, about thumbnails, about how they put together videos, and they talk analytics, and they try to understand whatever the YouTube algorithm is doing. And so doing that research and doing the homework, especially there's like little homework assignments literally in the book of like trying to figure out, okay, what are you doing with your channel? What kind of videos are you making? If it's a podcast, what type of audio are you doing? What type of subjects are you going to talk about? Who do you want to try to interview and all that kind of stuff? So do you have any other tools there that you did in terms of research?
Yeah, so those tools are good. Those tools are good when it comes to the book stuff, and I think that books, because you can do the audio versions of it, I still love looking at pages, right? Because there is it's less passive, right? Because you have to be active to look at the pages and read what's on the page and turn it.
Mm-hmm.
And actual pages, not Kindle. I'm speaking of actual pages. I still believe that there's value in that, right? and and even the Kindle, you are actively reading the stuff. So I do believe that there is a lot that you can learn from the audio books, and even listening to podcasts. There's a certain level of retention with that, but there's just something magical about the book stuff. So I think those are good. And the other thing to consider too is, if there are any channels that teach these things on a regular basis, consider like watching the thing at least one time, and then go back and watch it again and implement what they're saying, right? So for example, if someone is teaching about how to make a vertical video on YouTube, and you're watching that, actually open up, like a Canva or whatever that they're recommending, and do the exercise with them, right? It's one thing to watch and say, yeah, I heard about it, but it's another thing to actually implement those things. The only reason that I may have technically surpassed individuals with episode numbers is because I kept doing the stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not because that, I'm great, which I believe I am in a lot of ways, but because you have to have the ego there to,
Yeah,
just
otherwise you would have given
keep
up, right?
going. Right. You got to believe you're great at what you do. And when people are sharing that with you, but that's a tangent in and of itself. But I think that you have to do the stuff that people are saying. So, for example, YouTube Shorts, right? YouTube Shorts, keep the shorts under 50 seconds. The reason I say 50 is because if you get too close to the minute mark and YouTube adds anything after that, it no longer becomes a short, right? So 50 seconds would be your max. Get to the point right away. And YouTube has a fund that they're allowing individuals to tap into, depending on the shorts that they create, that kind of thing. So Instagram, they're inviting individuals in their Reels paid program thing, right? So I just received the invitation this week. So essentially, if you do Reels, they'll pay you for doing Reels up until a certain amount, right? So you have that. Then you have TikTok, right? So I think that all these tools, and as I'm thinking about it, one of the things that was really incredible just listening to Rick Party, he said that eyes are eyes and ears are ears, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter where people are consuming the content. Don't make the decision for them. Don't funnel them into a particular thing. Just preview where you can preview, and give them the larger piece somewhere else. So what I mean by that is, if you're previewing in a short or a TikTok or a reel, give them the link to get to the bigger piece later, right? And I think that as you're doing those things, consistently, and creating systems for yourself, you'll realize that it'll burnout will be tougher, because you've created systems, you've learned and implemented, and maybe you just batch your content, for future, and things of that nature. But I think research, Google.com is a great place, because you're able to tap in with the thing that you're looking for. It gives you multiple results. Watch 4 or 5 of them will give you the gist of the thing that you're trying to accomplish. Then you also have youtube.com, right? Another great place for, learning different skill sets. And Google sometimes will give free courses or classes on their Google Learning tech channels and things of that nature. So being good and proficient at anything these days is just a matter of the age old do the work, right? And I think that once you do the work, you'll start seeing the results.
Absolutely. And some of the things I've learned from books, like I was literally going through those books, I was doing like note taking, I was doing the homework, and I just have like journals full of just either little exercises or me just writing down ideas for like future content, because you get inspired by the process of deciding what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. And I think that's been like one of the greatest tools, was just having a notepad nearby, because anytime you think of a good idea regarding content creation, like, oh yeah, I'm going to do an episode about some, if you don't put that into writing, you don't hold yourself accountable. Also, you just might forget.
Mhm.
And so it's important, whether it's a notepad on your phone or in real life, just make those notes. And then of course, yeah, with the Kindle and the book, like real book, you can sort of highlight, you can put little tabs, you can write in the book, or and you can do some of that with a Kindle as well. You can highlight little sections, but I think it's kind of more tactile and easier to go back when it's a real book, or if you're just note taking on the side. I learned so much during just that short amount of time of just like researching, while I had already been putting videos on YouTube, and I felt like I knew a lot about content creation. Really didn't know a whole lot about YouTube, and YouTube is a little harder to get into.
Mhm.
Twitch is like stream key, hit go live, and you're good, But with YouTube, it's like, no, you need to make a thumbnail, and you need to know the essence of what makes a good thumbnail, a subject. You need to have some sort of writing there that explains what the video's about, if you can also show that through images that display some sort of action or result or tension or something like that, then you can do that. And you also need to live up to the promise of what you're promising in the title and the thumbnail and stuff like that. You can't say that you're going to give me 5 easy solutions to weight loss and then not give me those solutions, or you give me
Right.
something else, you pawn off something different that's, not even related to that. So if you lure me in, then it's a scam. I'm not gonna subscribe to your channel. I'm gonna feel like I got cheated, So you have to do that. You have to do the tags, the title, the description. It just, I think to a lot of people it seems like a lot of work, but I think when you do all that work, it makes your stream that much more clickable. So when people say that YouTube doesn't have discovery, I'm like, what do you mean? Are you just
Right.
not doing the thumbnail? Are you just not doing all these different things? And I've refined all those things over the years. And that's actually what I think is responsible for growing the community that I have now, is that I've done those things. And when on Twitch, it was really just taking a random screen grab from your screen, and that was your thumbnail. So at all times, you had to either be looking entertaining or doing something entertaining, or hoping that it's not capturing your be right back screen as your thumbnail, because maybe that's not the most exciting looking thing that viewers would want to click on while they're scrolling through 30 other people that are playing the same game as you.
For sure. Yeah, and I think when it comes to thumbnails, like one of the things that we can do
Mm-hmm.
is just look at how YouTube creators, the YouTube channels that are giving you updates, look at how they do their thumbnails, right?
Yeah.
And just learn from that. Their thumbnails are not super complicated, doesn't have a whole bunch of stuff on it, not a lot of words, and you can use that as a framework to, test out some thumbnails for your channel. And so I think that you can definitely get some value there.
Well, and there's another thing that you and I have talked about relating to thumbnails, and it's that the reaction faces are not really clickbait, are they?
No, they're not. I mean, it's part of the culture of YouTube, and
Yeah.
whether people like it or not, it does work for someone new coming in on YouTube.com, right? So essentially, um, from what I've heard,
Mm-hmm.
and from what I've read on like YouTube books and stuff like that, if you're able to keep individuals on YouTube.com for any length of time, the algorithms of YouTube will help you out, right? And I'm being very, very like, you know, top level about this because that's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube doesn't want anybody to leave their platform. YouTube wants individuals to stay on the platform. So if your channel, whatever your channel is, whatever it's about, allows individuals to remain there for 10, 15 minutes, an hour at a time. If you keep somebody on there for 30 minutes and then send them to another video and they stay for another 15, you send them to another video, they stay for another 8. Your channel will get love from the YouTube gods, if you will, the algorithm gods, right?
Yeah.
Because you're keeping them on there. And I think that if you believe that you're creating content for yourself and not the economy, the community of YouTube, then you have to rethink of how you look at YouTube.
Oh, absolutely. And what YouTube is doing is that they're not really, I don't think they're necessarily trying to promote just my channel, and that the more videos I put out and the more stuff I do and the better it is, that I'm just going to become a million subscribers channel. It's that YouTube is a platform that's providing entertainment, education, all this stuff. So if I'm providing something that an audience is looking for and they find it, they watch it, they like it, they watch the whole video through, they recommend it to a friend, or they watch another channel that's similar to mine, it all sort of feeds in. But at the end of the day, YouTube is trying to maintain that viewer, keep them on the site, but also make sure that they're providing content that that viewer's going to like. So if they quit watching my videos after a while, then it's like YouTube's not going to recommend it as much. So is that something I did? Is it something in my content that changed, that someone might have fallen off or not found something helpful or whatever it may have been? But yeah, at the end of the day, from what I've seen, is that YouTube is much like Netflix. It's an entertainment platform they're always trying to find your next movie, your next TV show based on what you've watched and what you like. Netflix is always crowding your feed with stuff that it thinks you're gonna like, so that you'll never close or turn off the TV or whatever it may be. That you're constantly using their app, and they're making money from their subscribers. And
Yeah.
with YouTube, it's ad revenue, it's all sorts of things.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because a couple of things I wanted to mention for the record, on this recording here is YouTube is the most used platform for podcast above Spotify. All
Wow.
right, that was news that came out in August. And the other thing too is YouTube launched a dedicated page around August for podcasts. So if you go to youtube.com/podcast, there's a dedicated page now for that. So that should tell you a lot that they're really investing in that particular world, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the recent play that they've done in the last, I would say, 6 to 8 days, based on when this is going to be out, is their next most important play is podcast ads. So if you're looking to create a show and you have the ability to create the video portion and audio portion on YouTube before you make it a Spotify, Apple podcasting, you might want to consider that highly, right? So I would definitely say search YouTube's most important podcast play on google.com and then read what comes up with that particular article, because they recently took out their podcast ads out of beta and they're making it a thing, right? So if you're creating content on YouTube, not only will you be able to potentially capitalize on the shorts fund, you'll be able to get ads on your videos if you're monetized, and then most likely, depending on where you go with the podcast ideas and things that you're trying to implement, you may be able to benefit from the podcast ad stuff that they're getting ready to implement across YouTube.com. So um, it really comes down to what not you personally, Aaron,
Yeah.
like the person listening is what do you want to do? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like where do you want to go? Right? So it's one of those things where my activity right now seems to be more focused on podcasts because I have 3 active shows, but I do want to stream on YouTube more. So I have to find a balance for myself in that regard. But in terms of like getting ads on my podcast, those things are already, happening for my main show. And wherever you can make the money,
Yeah.
right? And you can set yourself up, create systems for yourself, do that, right? And I would say try your best not to focus on what anybody else is doing, just focus on your grind and, do what you have to do to get out there.
That's such an important tip there is just to focus on yourself and yeah, to monetize where you can. I mean, that's been such a great reward in this career, especially when you hit that affiliate on Twitch. It's rather easy to do, but I mean, once the money starts rolling in and you start seeing like, wow, people appreciate what I'm doing, like I'm not just some guy messing around over here, there's actually results happening here, or that there's and then switching to YouTube, it was like starting all over, and it was like immediately cutting off that funding, right? So it was like, okay, now I've got this new goal to reach before I can hit monetization. I've got to truly earn it now. And it's gonna make it all the more worth it, and it's gonna be a challenge to sort of continue from there to figure out, okay, now that I'm on the mountaintop, where's the next peak from here that I have to do? But yeah, it's been the greatest gift was to make that money during that time and create this incredible setup that I have. I mean, a lot of the subscriptions and the donations and stuff that we had through Twitch was used to buy some of the incredible gear that I have now. So, you know, a lot of people were coming to the channel thinking like, "Oh yeah, this is kind of a new YouTuber. Like, he's only got so many hundred people watching at this point, or 100 subscribers and whatnot," and they're like, yeah, this guy probably just has a webcam and whatever else. And they come in, they see the incredible Sony A6000, they hear the Go XLR, the AT 2035 mic, and they're seeing the RGB lights and all the fun games, and they're hearing about the 3080 Ti graphics card, and they're like, wow, this guy's like, it's almost like this guy's been doing it a long time here. And it's
Yeah,
just,
no,
it's so
it's
funny.
definitely yeah, the gear is great, but what I realized in the last 13 years, like people don't care unless you're giving them value,
Yeah.
you know, and we don't get to decide what that value is. So, for example, if I'm just using this as an example, if someone does a beer show and they talk about beer every week while they stream,
Mm-hmm.
that's value for somebody, right?
Yeah.
And some individuals who may look at that and be like, hey, all they do is talk about beer. How is this content? Well, it's content because anything published, blog, audio, video, written word on the internet is a piece of content. It doesn't not become content because you don't like it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sometimes we get into like the jealousy pots of things on the internet, but that content of speaking about beer and different lagers or whatever the terminology is that I have no idea of,
Yeah.
is value for someone watching that stream who loves beer and different types of beer, right? And I think that you pick your pocket of the genre that you really enjoy talking about. If you could talk about it in the next 5 to 10 years, then that may be a good genre that you might want to consider. But I think that, like you were sharing, like your world and all the hardware that you have, which I love gear,
Oh
and
yeah.
I know you love gear too. But it's like if we don't give value, then with all that gear, then what does it really matter? You know what I mean?
None of it matters. Yeah.
So none of it matters, right? So I think that at this stage for me, 13 years in, it's where can I get some great conversation, leverage my current connections and affiliations, and bring great guests in, whether that's, the show radio, the Scripto Life, or, you know, uh, the Pixel Block on Twitter Spaces. Bring individuals in, have great conversation, and then take those conversations, archive them, and hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
right, someone stumbles on it and, via promotion or maybe just searching on Spotify for the person, and they say, hey, well, I didn't know Rick Party recently did an interview. Let me listen to that, right? And I think that, you know, um, adding those value bits on the internet is extremely important to me right now, especially leaving legacy for content.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's an important note too, creating value. I think that's something that you've echoed a lot over the years, either in conversations that we've had, and I'm sure to countless others, but it kind of echoes in my head now that you mention it, because you would always say something like, are you creating value with your content? And so I'm always
Yeah.
thinking about that. And sometimes there are little bits of content where maybe I'm just cashing in. I'm just not creating much value there. I'm just like, I'm playing this game, doing the motions, just recording it for the day so we get something out there. But yeah, when you start to think about value, you're like, oh, am I just I need to look at this in a different way. I need to sort of look at, okay, I'm playing this game here, but how do I make it valuable to someone? Because no one's just going to watch me play the game unless I'm the best at the game or I have the best personality. Which, if
Mhm.
you have both, you're blessed. And so, you have to do something unique with what you have. And so, if you can bring something unique to it, you can bring some sort of experience that you have or knowledge or whatever it may be. So, I mean, one of the big things around my channel, a lot of it is video games, a lot of it is comic book content. We always sort of rally on that on Thursdays when we're playing Avengers, and we're always talking about what the latest Marvel and DC news is. So it's sort of become a little bit of a culture hub for everybody to come in and say like, "Oh, did you see the trailer for the new Marvel thing? Did you see this in the new DC movie? Did you hear about this new game? Are you going to play that game? Who are you going to play as when you get the game?" All that kind of stuff. So when you can do that, you can create value, and that is what sort of brings people back, right? It's not just a one and done type thing.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's extremely important when you're, crafting things, and even what you were saying just now, like you're playing a game,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's Destiny, Call of Duty, Warframe, all the ones that we love, Paladins, etc. We can go down the list of all the games, but interacting with the person as you're playing the game is really important, which is why a lot of folks have built, tremendous communities, gigantic communities, because of the reaction of you either, taking a digital tango out or whatever, and you're reacting with them as they're hanging out with you. And I think that those connections are it changes someone's day, and that alone can change someone's life, right? Because you don't know what anybody's going through IRL. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that there's value there. There's definitely value there of making somebody feel better. We're not psychologists. We're not any of those individuals. There are professionals for that. But if someone's not having a good day and you give them an encouraging word, I think there's value there. But if you're looking for professional help where you need a couch for an hour and stuff like that, that's not who
Yeah.
we are, right?
No.
Professionally. But I do believe that there are some individuals that has those gifts, even though they're not professionals, to make somebody, see a different outlook on something. But there's value in those moments.
Yeah, there really is, and I can speak to that. There have been several moments where I've played a game and that's turned things around for me, or I've interacted with someone on their stream and they say something encouraging. Maybe I'm having a bad day and I tune into someone's stream and they're like, "Hey Aaron, you're really like doing the grind there. You're like putting out a lot of videos. You're doing a great job." And I was like thinking in my head, I'm like, wow, I'm not really doing a great job. What are they seeing in me? Because I don't see that in myself. I'm thinking like I'm barely on the surface. I'm barely keeping up. I'm barely doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Am I even living up to my true potential here? And someone else is looking at me through a completely different lens and they're like, wow, I wish I could be doing what he was doing. And
For sure.
it boosts you up a little bit when someone else
Yeah,
sort of
absolutely.
gives you their take, even if it's critical. It can be so helpful. And that's why another thing in that YouTube book was like having that mastermind group of other content creators that you can go to and be like, hey, this font and this thumbnail just doesn't look right to me. Is the color good on this? Or I have this idea for a video, but would this work? That type of stuff. Or just asking people to collaborate like we're doing today. This is not just a one side wins, the other side loses, or I gain more than you gain, or you gain more than I gain. It's really a collaborative thing because we both love educating, we both love giving back, we enjoy talking about gear. This is a normal conversation for us even without the mics on record mode here. It's not unusual
Yeah.
for us to be discussing stuff like this. So just
And
the
the other
fact,
thing too,
yeah.
yeah, the other thing too is, compensation is good too. And I know that depending on the communities that you travel, they
Mm-hmm.
make it seem like what we do is in value to get compensated for, right?
Oh.
So we live in an era now where, people are subscribing to individuals and also platforms, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can have a Netflix subscription, Hulu, or whatever, Disney Plus, but you can also subscribe to the individuals that are giving you value by way of entertainment. So if you look at Netflix and those things as entertainment, your favorite streamer, content creator, podcaster, they're they're entertaining or educating you too. So compensation for that shouldn't be something weird that someone decides that they want to be monetized for the content that they're producing. It should be encouraged because if they're willing to produce content and you believe in what they're doing and they have a subscribe button or whatever the button is to compensate and be part of that journey for the individual, that's not a bad thing, right? That's not a bad thing. If it was a bad thing, then you wouldn't see companies like YouTube and all these other companies encouraging people to create content to get paid for it. Not only does it help those platforms, to get more stuff on it, but they understand that compensation should be a thing. So change your circles if they think you're weird because you want to be monetized.
Yeah. It's not selling out, and it's not any sort of thing like that. It's really, you're putting a lot of work into this. You're entertaining, you're creating, you're the video editor, the director, the sound engineer, the PR person, all these various things. You're the lighting expert, the cameraman, all these things. So it really helps when that monetization comes in, and it makes sense because it's very much, we're running our own little TV show here. We're running our very own gaming thing here. You're running a podcast about tech news and stuff. So, you have all these different things, and I don't know, I've had comments my entire experience of doing content creation. I've always had those comments where they come in and they say, kind of weird that you're asking for money, like and I guess maybe they just look at the setup or they look at the quality of the stream and they're like, you are probably secretly making millions, right? So like, kind of weird that you're asking me to subscribe, like don't you have a
Yeah,
real
but
job?
yeah, but isn't it kind of weird where they don't say the same thing about Hulu or
No.
Netflix or any other thing that they subscribe to? I
And they're
think that
subscribed
that's
to
kind of
all of
weird.
those, right? Yeah, they're like subscribed to
Right.
multiple of those. And now you can subscribe to the entertainers individually. So, you can find
Right.
your
Right.
favorite voice actor and find that they are indeed a streamer, and you can subscribe to their
Right.
channel and get their emotes and watch their content and support them monetarily. And we shouldn't assume just because someone has this or that they're like perfectly well off and okay. I mean, everybody, even the channels that hit partnership, still need your support. So even though there are affiliates on Twitch that can be making money, and they need your support for the partner grind or whatever, they need followers and subscribers and constant viewers and stuff like that. Well, when you get to the mountaintop of being a partner, I mean, maybe you've experienced this, but like I've seen it with some of my friends that have become partners, that like some of the supporters just vanish. They're like, well, we helped
Yeah.
him. And it's like, and so now
Yep.
he can make the money and do all the things, but like now he doesn't need us there all the time to view his stuff.
Yep. It happens. It's just and it's really from the individuals. The flack is usually from the individuals who aren't doing it right.
Okay.
Try to create a podcast and then get to 100 episodes. Just try it.
Yeah.
Try to get
If
to
it's so
300.
easy, try it.
Right. Just try it. Try to get to 500. Right.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get to 1,000. I don't know, but try to get to 600. Right. I could only share where I'm at. Right.
Yeah.
Try doing 3 active shows.
Oh my
Just
god.
try it. Just give it a try. Right.
I don't
Try
want to
putting
try it.
yourself in a position where people are asking you questions about something that you believe you're proficient at and you believe you have the answer to give them. Try it. Just try it.
Yeah.
And then you'll have a better understanding. Then you'll have a better appreciation, longevity, dedication. Then you have a better appreciation for those things for individuals who've been in the game for whatever that game is. Could be YouTube, could be Twitch, could be podcasts. It's a lot of work, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And you have to create systems for yourself where you stay in it for a very, very long time. But the thing is, it's like if you think it's that easy, go do it, right?
Yeah.
And then let me know. Let me know how it works out. Let me know. But it's rare these days that you get individuals that are crossing certain milestones. 50 is a milestone, 100, and then 150, et cetera, et cetera. It's rare to get to those milestones without having systems, without having a solid team. And if you're a solo content creator, without having dedication and drive, right? You're not going to get to those numbers without some of those things in place or all of them. So,
Absolutely. I think during the pandemic especially, we saw a lot of new people get into the content creation game. They would just kind of like see a live stream and be like, oh, that's easy. Like, I already have the camera, I already have Discord, already, I can download OBS, I already have an Xbox or a gaming PC or whatever it may be. And a lot of people got into it and they tried it and they got burned out. And it also had a lot to do with people going back to work after a certain amount of time. You sort of lose those viewers that were home all the time and working from home all the time and stuff like that. And things change very rapidly, and you have to kind of go with the flow on stuff like this. And a lot of people realize that content creation is hard. Like, they see the easy stuff, which is just put up the camera, play the game, in my example here. But there's obviously so much more behind that, because if you just put up the camera and play the game, well, no one's going to come to your little stream. You have to be out there on social media. You have to be in other people's streams, which is something that, you might not even consider because you're worried about your show. You're like, no, I need to be recording episodes of my show. I need to get my show off the ground. I got to make sure my show's good. I got to do my show. So you don't really think about collaborating or even just like seeing what other creators do so that you can be inspired by what they do, or maybe even copy something that they do and learn from it and use that to enhance your show even further. There's so much you can learn from that. from other people
Absolutely.
and from the experience. And yeah, if you give up, that's fine. Um, but you'll see how hard it is. It really is difficult. It just looks. I'm a musician as well, so everything I do, whether it's content creation or being a musician, everything I do looks really fun from the outside. But what's not fun is sitting there and practicing the same lick or the same scale over and over and over until it's just muscle memory at some point. And it's the same with content creation. There's so many things that you have to do. A lot of people don't like video editing, but you practice and you practice and you practice. You learn the shortcuts. You do 600 episodes like Andrew has done here. And obviously, you have a process, you have a routine, you have a workflow. You know how quick you can churn out an episode if you have to, how quick you can go through and edit. And so that experience really shows, because when you're given the chance to sit down in front of someone like that and have that conversation, if you don't have all your ducks in a row, you are going to be so embarrassing and unprepared for that situation. You might have bad audio that day, or you might not have recorded the whole thing, or you didn't bring enough cables to record the show or whatever. If you don't have all this experience and all this knowledge, and you get the opportunity of a lifetime and you bungle it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, which is why research is important, right? So even with the recent conversation that I had with Rick Party, he said, "You know more about me than I thought you'd know,"
Oh, wow.
right? And for me, that means a lot, because I really wanted to make sure that I had enough information to ask questions about. And that's the beauty of the interview. It's not just let's just kick it. We're kicking it, but I want to show you that I appreciated your time, right?
Absolutely.
So, researching this stuff. So, hearing that from him was definitely a major compliment for me, that I had done enough homework to earn that. And then once you do that, and I think that's the secret for interviews, right?
Yeah.
Is that let the guest talk most of the conversation. So you do 80-20 or 90-10 or whatever, 90% of the time that they're talking, you do 10%. Then in the conversation, add a little bit about you as you're asking the questions. So they're learning about you at the same time you're showing that you've researched them, right? And I think that balance will make the conversation even more like more full of detail, right? Because they want to share more, because they realize that you didn't just invite them on just for their name. You invited because you had a real interest about their life and their accomplishments. So I think those things are important.
Absolutely. And it's so much better than just the question answer format, because that can just
Right.
it can just turn super formal, and sometimes that's a good format to have, but it's like you can get so much more when you have that conversational aspect, you have that appreciation, and you just let your guests talk, especially like in a situation like we have right now. You have so much to say, you have so much knowledge to share, that we just need to sort of funnel it and target it in the right way, and just get it out there. So next thing I want to talk about is moderation. So I think
Hmm.
both of our channels are, and most of the stuff that you run is like a one-man show here. So talk a little bit
Yep.
about how you use moderation to make sure that your spaces are safe, there's no, bad language or inappropriate content being shared.
Yeah, so for moderation, I'll just go with Discord first. There are some of the things that you could use would be safe link, ping cord, then you have MEE6, which is really good, and then you dial in on what can be shared on those particular platforms, whether they're allowed to do links or no links, and then even as they enter the particular Discord, you share with them the expectations of behavior, right? And I think once you set the expectations of behavior, and those same expectations are connected to the bots and how those bots will react the things in the channel. Thank God, I don't have a lot of challenges in my Discord because it's targeted, right? There's
Yeah.
official links. Anything about me will be in the official links. And when people come into the actual Discord, it doesn't send them a DM to welcome them. Everything is done like up front. Everything is done public. There's no DMs. I'm not gonna DM you for anything unless we're friends and we're just catching up or whatever. But outside of that, any new person that comes into the Discord, the way I have it set up where it doesn't send them any private messages. So everything is done up front, and I think there's safety in that,
Yeah.
right? Where things are done in public and all the bots are doing what they're supposed to do. And then from there you could probably add like your lo-fi radio and some other things, maybe some games within the Discord platform, for moderation. For conversations, I think that based on how the conversation flow goes, then I moderate on the fly with that. When it comes to social audio platforms like your Clubhouse or anything like that, I tend to be the main moderator unless, someone there is trusted, and I'll give him the moderator badge on Clubhouse to help me bring people up to ask questions and then go from there. But from what I've noticed, and I'm grateful for this, where when I have the rooms about podcasting on Clubhouse, people really come up, ask the questions, and they keep it on topic, and you'll say something like, hey, if you're going to come up and ask the questions, please make sure you keep it on topic. And people will try to, share what they have going on and stuff like that. And I'll allow some of that as long as it's, done with taste, right? But if we're here talking about, podcasting and podcasting Q&A, let's not talk about any other thing or drama that's happening on Clubhouse that no one probably cares about in the room that we're talking about podcast. So I think focused moderation is extremely important, and I think that how you share the information as well is important. Your voice inflections will tell more of a story than the actual word themselves. So I think that those are some of the ways that I try to tackle moderation. I'm here to share information. I'm here to talk about this particular topic. If you're coming up, make sure you're focused on this, that, and the other that we're talking about right now. And I think most individuals respect that. And if they don't, then you have to, remove them from the room and stuff like that. So you have to do what you have to do.
Absolutely. And it's so important that you have those rules up front and, as you say throughout, whatever it is, a podcast or a show, that you're sort of echoing that, and, your guests know that. And then if you're doing a live stream, of course, you have like a rules section, or you have panels, you have a description, you have chat bots that can also inform people of the rules. And, you can verbally let people know, especially if they violate a rule, or if it's a minor infraction or a major infraction, whatever it may be. Every community has their own rules. And so you kind of have your own right to enforce those. And one of the other things about moderation that I love with YouTube, and I mention it at every time, is just the ability to just blacklist words. And that is the greatest tool that Twitch does not have, and that a lot of other platforms do not have. It's just the ability to just put in a master list of words, and that's really helped keep the community clean. Anytime there's been any sort of like hateful people coming in, or trolling or anything of that aspect, it's like nothing hardly gets through. And if something does get through, then I can quickly get rid of it.
Yeah, I love that too. And if Twitch had that a long time ago, I think a lot of the stuff that we've seen would have been handled very differently.
Yeah, a lot of the hate raids and the serious mistakes that have gone on throughout the years that have made things very difficult for the platform. I mean, that could be an overnight change, but we haven't seen it. Okay, so talking along with moderation, let's talk about behavior, and this is tying in more to your behavior as a content creator, and as you're getting and I want to get into the next topic as well, kind of lace these together as you're getting into like someone that's giving you game codes and sponsorships and you're getting gear sent to
Hmm.
you by companies. Your behavior has a lot to do with that. So let's get into the behavior.
Absolutely. So association is extremely important. I think that if you see somebody that is potentially a disruptor and it's not necessarily positive, then you have to weigh out if you want that to be connected to you and your personal brand, right? Or whatever business that you're building. So I think branding is extremely important, whether it's your logo, visual design, tone of voice, and what you're putting out there, right?
Right.
And I've seen, and I know you have too, individuals lose opportunities because of how they presented themselves. You got to play the game. It is a game. The game is not just the things that you play on console and PC. The game is being brandable and putting yourself in a position where companies will want to work with you. Because most companies, if not all of them, they don't want any messy ambassador, right? And you can ask Kanye or anybody else that's going through it right now,
Yeah.
right? No company, appreciates an ambassador that is messy, right? And I think that you have to do your best to navigate those for your personal brand. Stay as clean as possible, stay as brand friendly as possible. And I think that companies, when they notice that, they're more willing to present an opportunity or even have a conversation about opportunities if they see that. I tend to treat these days, right, at the time of this recording, so I'll say these days,
Yeah.
that any conversation as if it is a public conversation, right? Whether it was recorded privately or messages were shared privately, I try to treat those as public as possible in the event that an individual decides to use that for bad, or they feel like they can get over by tainting my personal brand and stuff like that. Then I could be okay with saying, hey, the information that I've shared privately, if it happens to come to light, I'll be okay, right? And I think those things are important. So behavior, be on your best behavior. What does that look like? Well,
Hmm.
look at some personal brands that have done very, very well, and take the ingredients from that and apply it to your personal brand. If you're causing havoc on social media, you're known to be a disruptor in a negative way. You think saying everything is cool because you believe that it's free from consequences. That's not necessarily going to be good for you when you're trying to work with brands, right? It's not going to be good. So I think that it is extremely important when it comes to setting yourself up. It's not a sellout. You're setting
No.
yourself up in such a way where, as you're building your business, whether it's a podcast business or a YouTube business, brands, aside from you giving them, your rates and things of that nature, they want someone who is super clean, right?
Yeah.
And do the best that you can with that.
And it's easier if it's not all a facade, right? If you just
Right.
behave all the time, you don't have to really worry about your fake persona of, oh yeah, I'm good. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I get spicy sometimes, but it's within reason.
yeah, absolutely. That doesn't mean that we can't have fun and joke around a little bit. But I have seen that sort of the sponsorship and the game codes and review copies arena, these marketing teams, it's a very small little world. So once they hear about one guy that steps out and breaks embargo and starts leaking gameplay early, or
Yep.
creates a fake Twitter account and starts dropping news that's not public about leaking games early and stuff like that. I mean, once these guys find out, you're on the blacklist, man, and I don't know if there's a way to get off of that. There's no
Forever.
there's no
You're on there forever.
apologies. There's no apology that covers it for these companies. They're like, "No,
Maybe,
you're a risk." Right?
maybe,
Maybe.
maybe if there's an opportunity for you to
Mhm.
apologize personally with the individuals that are in charge of influencer relations and stuff like that, maybe you might get a
Maybe.
second chance. But and depending on your demographic, you might get a second chance too,
That's the
right?
other
Because we've
thing.
seen a lot of that, people saying weird words, offensive words for to certain groups, and they get a pass and they get another blockbuster deal, months later, and you're like, well, wait a minute, okay, so it's easy for them to do that rebound based on a demographic, but
Yeah,
that's a conversation for another day,
we've
right?
seen
So you
it.
have those things. Breaking NDA. I mean, why would you want to do that? What for? To get a day early, 24-hour early when you've built a relationship with a company for years? Why is that, a thing, right? So
You want
I
that
I don't
temporary
want
boost of
to.
subscribers, you know? You
Yeah,
you want
I
that
don't want to. I don't
attention
want to
that it
do that.
garners. But no, it's not worth it in
I,
the
you
long
know,
run.
can you imagine doing that? Like I think about like so Logitech G is the main one, right? That I talk about, and there's some that
Yeah.
are active collaborations that for the way it's structured, I can't mention who they are, right? Um, so respecting that. But Logitech G, when I think about everything that I use now, from mouse to keyboard to even microphones and cameras and stuff like that, they've essentially, yes, it's a transactional thing, and I've built relationship with the team. They've helped me create content, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful for that, right? And I think even that particular, affiliation has opened other doors for me with other companies. But I do agree with you. It is a small world, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is a small world. So when you're looking at, companies like, Logitech, Astro Gaming, I've seen individuals move from one company to another. And because, I used to work with them from the previous company, now that they're working with a new company, it's not even a question if I'm going to be able to work with them or not.
Oh wow.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Because
I
you have
think
a good
that
relationship. Yeah.
as recent as the chair, the Herman Miller, chair with Logitech G, the Vantum, the individual that went from one company to another, and it's just understand that, I'm trying to say a lot without saying anything that would like hurt me, right? Just understand that it's a small world, especially when it comes to PR, and they all know each other, and your name will circulate faster than probably the random comment that you said thinking that it was cool to say, right?
Yeah.
Your name travels faster than that on the blacklist, right? And yeah, just be mindful of that. Treat everybody like you want to be treated, and hopefully you're treating yourself great, and it'll work out.
Absolutely. Now, are there any last thoughts here on content creation, podcasting? Any last bits that maybe we haven't covered yet, or any knowledge you want to share here?
Yeah, I think the main thing I want to share is really just focus on taking the time to learn the world of YouTube or podcast or content, and do not focus on what other folks are doing, right? It's easy to say something like, hey, I want to stream like Aaron. He puts in a lot of time and dedication to his stream, but you're not Aaron, okay? You're you. So focus on you. You're not going to be charming like Aaron. You're not going to have the same jokes like Aaron. You're not going to play music like him, right? So focus on you. Right? And I think that once people do that, then they'll stop saying things like, hey, YouTube is saturated. No, YouTube is YouTube. It's a distribution platform, and they welcome a lot of different pieces of content, but your DNA is the only one of its kind on the
Yeah.
platform. So focus on that, right? And I think if you focus on that, and you build, you associate yourself with other content creators that are moving and shaking. If you're a podcast individual, or aspiring podcaster, listen to great podcasters. and that will speed up your trajectory to be great. Just listen to the greats, whoever you consider great in that particular genre, whether it's true crime, society and culture, gaming, leisure, whoever that person is for you. Listen to them every day if they put out every day, every week, or whatever, and you'll start noticing, your growth, because it'll become second nature. It'll become muscle memory. So I'll just say focus on you, and stay a student of the game, right? I'm more excited about my next episode. So I think it's at 628, one of those, than I was, years past, right? I feel like there's a refreshing feeling that I'm starting over with all the tools that I have at my disposal, from, ad inserts to just recording the content, just excited to create with Daniela, my co-host, Ms. DJM, and even that, that particular bit, building a great relationship with her. I think that's important, and morale is important too, right? As you're building content with teams, treat them like you want to be treated, and make sure that if morale is down, find out why, and not record when morale is down. And I guess that's another thing I want to add. I never
Yeah.
record with Daniela if something's going on between um, me and her, which is rare, her or me, right? Or IRL. Any of those things, we don't record at all. Zero.
Yeah.
So until we figure out what's going on, whether there's something going on with me, something's going on with her, or I feel like there was a misunderstanding on my part, then I want to address all those things before we get back on the mic again. Extremely important, because at this point, she's been with me since episode 340. The listeners kind of know who we are at this point. 300 episodes in, almost 300 episodes in, right? So my relationship with her, people know if something's going on, and if we're tired, if we're exhausted, if we're drained, the listeners know, right? So knowing these things, you want to make sure that your morale and your relationship with your co-host are, 1,000% good before you get on the mic.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well,
man.
I would like to thank you for being on and for sharing this incredible wealth of knowledge. I hope that this answers a lot of the questions that the community and people around here have had about content creation, how to get into it, what are some of the things you can start with, the education, the moderation, your behavior, stuff you might not have considered yet, but even if you're just sort of getting into it for fun, just to meet new people, you never know how it could blow up to become something that you really enjoy. And maybe it eventually becomes something that you want to monetize. These are the tools. And we will have links in the description down below to Andrew, his content, and of course to the gear that he's recommended. We'll have that down there as well. So once again, thank you for being here, Andrew. Take care, everyone. Bye.